In today's video, I'm gonna show you every one of the 36 unique items that I brought in this traveling kitchen kit, why I brought it and think it's essential, and I'm actually gonna show you how everything fits inside of this case. It was actually a lot of fun to figure out. Now, if you are wondering why, well, in the last video, I mentioned that I recently packed up my apartment and moved to Paris. Now, instead of relying on those awful 20-year-old kitchen knives that most rentals have, I wanted to see if I could create a kitchen kit that I could travel the world with and has the essential items I need. Now, I do realize that 99% of you are never going to need a setup like this, but you probably will move a lot of times, especially in your 20s and 30s. I think I've moved 8 times in the past 8 years. So I hope this video shows you you don't need a ton of gear or super fancy equipment to make amazing food at home. But with that being said, let's start with the case, which houses everything. This is the Pelican Air 1615 travel case. So I think in the Amazon photo it had like hardcore rafting and camera equipment or something, but I find it perfect because of the organization pockets built in, which keep a hold of everything. Now, I did have to try to keep everything under 50 pounds to avoid extra fees while traveling, so I did have to make some of my choices with that constraint in mind, but now let's go category by category and fill this case up. For my cookware, I brought 4 pots and pans, 2 stainless steel and 2 carbon steel, which both have great heat control, and more importantly for me, they're both lightweight. Number 1 for me is of course the carbon steel wok. You all know how much I love this thing. One of the most versatile pans out there. You could boil water in it, you can deep fry, you can stir fry, saute, almost anything can be done in this pan. To fit this in, I got some soft foam inserts that I just cut some holes through into, and this is the first thing I lay into the case, and then the wok goes right into that slot. Next, we have the stainless steel saucier. So this has become one of my favorite pots, especially for one-pot pastas. And it's great too because a carbon steel pan is gonna react with acidic ingredients like tomato sauces and whatnot, and that can actually start to remove the seasoning that you have on it. And that's where stainless steel comes into play. It's not gonna react, it's perfect for that. And this pan is actually big enough for braising and can be tossed right in the oven. Definitely a useful one. Then the last 2 cookware items, I've got a stainless steel saucepan, just nice to have an extra one around on hand, and it's not too heavy to fit in the case. And then this is the carbon steel frying pan. This is one of the workhorse pans actually in French kitchens. One of your daily drivers, can be used for almost anything. If you have a good seasoning on this, it's gonna act basically like a non-stick, and it also can get super great sears on steaks, chicken, or anything like that. Both of these pans fit on top of the other ones, and I usually put a piece of foam in between so it doesn't bang around too much while moving them. So onto the bakeware, I kept it pretty simple. So first up, I have all of these baking sheets. So I've got 3 different sizes. One is the half sheet baking pan, and then with a baking rack or a roasting rack that you can put right in that. And then I also have a quarter sheet baking pan and an 1/8 sheet baking pan. So the big half sheet is really what I use, roasting vegetables or making like a sheet pan dinner. But the other ones are really nice to have, even just for prep work, or maybe you toss a steak on this and salt it, and just kind of helping organizing things. So I really find having multiple sizes is pretty nice, and these fit in perfectly in the top little segment here of the Pelican case. Lastly, for bakeware, I do have this little 12-inch aluminum pizza screens, and this is one of my favorite cheap little kitchen tools. So great for pizzas, obviously. The aluminum conducts heat really fast, so if you don't want to like wait for a baking steel or something, or you don't want something that heavy in your kitchen, that's where this comes to play. But I actually use this a lot for just like toasting breads or leftovers or frozen foods, or maybe throwing a sandwich on top and letting the cheese melt underneath while the bread gets crispy on the bottom. Definitely a helpful pan, and this one fits in right with the other baking sheets. Didn't take up much space, so definitely one that I was gonna bring with me. So onto containers. The only thing I brought was deli containers and a couple of small glass bowls. So you all have seen me use these things a million times. They're perfect for helping you measure out or prep ingredients. You can store your leftovers in here, do a variety of things with them, and then they all have the same lid, which is super nice. You don't have to worry about finding all those different container lids. They're reusable, throw them in the dishwasher, reuse them, and I've actually heard that these are a little bit hard to find in Europe, or you can't really get them over here, so definitely glad that I brought my own stock. And then lastly, I did bring a couple of glass prep bowls. I kind of just like these, probably not the best thing to bring, but something about them just makes me happy when putting little amounts of herbs or spices in these for prep work. So for the small deli containers, I place these in the sauce pot, then I toss the medium containers into a little cutout I made, and then the even bigger ones I keep on the left side of the case, and I actually put the little glass bowls inside it so I don't have to worry about them moving around or breaking. Now onto some of my kitchen favorites, measuring tools. So I actually brought 3 different thermometers. One is the Thermapen 1. This is a probe thermometer. I also have a leave-in probe thermometer, so like for a big roast or something in the oven. And then I do have a surface infrared thermometer. Now, temperature is super important, especially as you want to become a better and more consistent cook. If you're looking for a specific result, honestly, temperature is usually your easiest way to get there. You can learn things through trial and error without thermometers, but using these are instantly gonna level up your cooking in more ways than you can imagine. Obviously, you know, poultry, meats, and fishes, like if you're looking for an exact temperature, always great, but even things like baked goods, breads, cookies, all benefit from knowing what happens at various temperatures. Then lastly, of course, I had to bring the digital scale. So this one is actually a 2-plate one. This one goes down to 1 gram, and this one can actually weigh below 1 gram if you need, you know, very specific measurements. And again, I'm not gonna mess around with a bunch of measuring spoons or cups. I don't even own them when I did have an apartment. But cooking by weight is gonna make you a much better cook. You're gonna be more consistent. You're actually gonna be faster measuring stuff out, especially once you get the hang of just like dumping things in bowls. And I would actually argue that it makes you a more creative cook because you can make little changes in your desired results by using different weights, like for bread baking or things like that example, where you have to really measure stuff. You can't go completely by eye, and you're able to kind of change the result and have a lot of fun. You know, maybe I'll do a video on that topic. But yeah, these are my measuring tools, and all of these slot right into the mesh elastic pockets quite nicely. Onto the utensils, and I try to keep it fairly simple for these. So first up we have the spatulas, and I have this Winco flat metal turner, great for smash burgers. Also love using this for the baking sheet, like roasted vegetables, things like that. So this is definitely a great one. I have a general all-purpose rubber spatula, you know, for batters, things like that. Sauces in the pan, this is a good one to have. Silicone, so you don't have to worry about it, you know, melting or anything like that. And then this is actually a metal fish spatula, so obviously great for fish, but I brought this too because it was flat and I could use it for deep frying things to let the oil drip off instead of like a big spider. This just fit much better. Now, moving on, we also just have a rubber or silicone serving spoon. It's just nice to have. I also have some silicone tipped tongs, so again, heat resistant. I've got a micro grater. Kind of wish I would have brought one with bigger holes, but gets the job done. And then lastly, we have the kitchen shears. Again, just useful. A vegetable peeler. And I also brought some chopsticks. Actually pretty underrated item. Can be used to eat with, obviously, but great for stirring and things like that. So these are all my utensils. To fit these all in, there's this nice zipper pocket that fits most of them, and then some of them I kind of just fit loose around the case wherever there was room. Now, while I do love measuring tools, knives are definitely my all-time favorite, and I did bring a lot more than I actually needed. Now, all of these fit into this large canvas knife roll that I got, and if I could only pick 2, it would actually just be this 8-inch chef's knife and then the bread knife. This is gonna handle about 95% of every kitchen task that you actually need. That being said, I did bring a couple more just because I like knives. So I did bring the large Chinese cleaver, and then I also brought my Nikiri. Both of these kind of fit the same roll. They're kind of for vegetables. They can also be used for other things too, but they're just fun to use and I like to have options. You know, that's really it. But then I also did bring one other 8-inch chef knife. Just again, I like options. But the last knife that I brought was this Japanese Honosuke. So this is a single bevel knife that is actually used for breaking down chicken and poultry and stuff. It's actually super fun to use. And yeah, again, it's kind of more for a one type of use thing, but it's a fun knife to use. And then in general for knives, I probably should do a video on these, but you don't have to get super expensive knives. Like a $40 knife can be used to great performance, especially if you know how to keep track of it. That being said, I think there is a significant upgrade if you kind of get, and if you know what you're looking for in like the $75 to $150 range. Like if you know what you're looking for, you can definitely get some significant upgrades. None of these are super expensive. Like I think this is like 75 or 80 bucks. This one I think is like 85, and they're some of my favorite knives. I've used some very expensive knives. I actually bought like a $250 one for myself, and it didn't even make it into this canvas roll. Now this knife roll does fit into this case, but it takes it over the 50-pound limit. So I actually fit this into another suitcase just to avoid those extra fees while I'm traveling. So let's round out with miscellaneous stuff before I tell you what I think I'm missing. First up is the cutting board. Now, normally I prefer a big wood slab, but this is actually a composite board. I think it cuts much nicer than like a plastic one would, but it's still super light. And actually you could throw this in the dishwasher if you wanted to. Now for the other miscellaneous things, I definitely was gonna bring some kitchen towels, just a very useful item to have for a variety of reasons. Then we also have some carbon steel seasoning wax, you know, like if the seasoning gets a little weird while traveling or if it's in storage, who knows what happens with it. Then I also brought a whetstone. So normally I have a set of 3 and I could only bring 1. So this is a 1,000 grit whetstone. I think I'm gonna get a travel one that's 1,000, 5,000 combo stone though, just because I would like to have a little bit higher one to polish on. Then lastly, I did bring 1 or 2 appliances. So this is a wireless hand blender, which is great for like pureeing soups or sauces and things like that. And actually can be used for smoothies too. You just throw it into the deli container with your smoothie stuff and then blend it up. It actually works quite well. So after cooking for about a week or so, I haven't made a ton of stuff, but I definitely don't feel constrained by anything. There is one thing that I'm definitely missing, and that happens to be something that this place had, which is a colander. And actually I might get this exact version. So this is like a silicone colander that folds up, which is kind of perfect for my setup. Definitely need something like this because I went to make pasta one of the first couple nights, and then I was like, wait, I don't have a strainer. And luckily they had this. So this is definitely the one thing I'm missing from my setup. But outside of that, I haven't really found any other situation where I feel like I've really needed something. So definitely happy with what I brought. But anyway, that will wrap it up for the video. So drop down in the comments items that maybe you want for your kitchen, or maybe if you do think I am missing something, let me know as well, because I don't know for right now. But yeah, cooking content will be on the way very, very soon next week. So definitely subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace, y'all.